poor young woman cried at a grave. The millionaire said, "That's my wife's grave. What's your story?" Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. It was a cold, gray morning in the quiet cemetery, the sky overcast and thick with clouds, as Emma stood alone by a grave, her eyes fixed on the headstone that bore the name of her mother. Tears streamed down her face, the wind biting through her thin jacket, but Emma didn't notice. She had no family left to turn to, no friends to lean on. Life had been a constant struggle ever since her mother passed away. At just 24 years old, Emma had found herself alone, penniless, and desperately clinging to the hope that things might get better. But deep down, she wasn't sure if they ever would. Her mind was filled with questions she didn't have answers to. Would she ever escape the cycle of poverty? Could she ever make something of herself? As the tears fell, Emma clutched the locket her mother had given her years ago, her fingers trembling from the cold. She whispered softly to the grave, "I wish you were still here, Mom. I don't know what to do anymore." Suddenly, a voice broke through her quiet despair. "Are you all right?" Emma jumped, startled by the question. She turned to see a man standing a few feet away, his dark suit sharply contrasting with the somber surroundings. He had a solemn expression on his face, his eyes filled with a kind of sadness that she couldn't place. "I'm fine," Emma replied, wiping her eyes quickly and trying to compose herself. But the man didn't seem convinced. He took a few steps closer, his gaze shifting to the grave beside her. "That's my wife's grave," he said quietly. Emma looked up in surprise, her mind trying to process the unexpected revelation. "I'm sorry," she muttered, feeling awkward for crying in front of a stranger, especially one with such a painful connection to the place. The man nodded, then looked at her more intently. "What's your story?" he asked, his voice gentle but probing. Emma hesitated. She wasn't sure she was ready to share the depths of her grief with a stranger. But something about his quiet demeanor made her feel like she could trust him, even if just for a moment. I lost my mom," she finally said, her voice faltering. "I've been struggling. I don't have anyone left." The man's expression softened as he listened. He seemed to understand, though Emma didn't know how. "I know what it's like to lose someone you love," he said, his voice steady. "But sometimes, life has a way of bringing people together when they least expect it." Emma glanced up at him, her curiosity piqued. Who was this man? Why did he seem so familiar with loss? But before she could ask, the sound of his phone ringing interrupted their conversation. He glanced at the screen, his face darkening. "Excuse me," he said briefly, stepping away to take the call. Emma stood there for a few moments, staring at the grave, her thoughts racing. She hadn't expected to meet anyone here today, much less a man with such a personal connection to the very place that had caused her so much pain. What was it about him that made her feel like her life was about to change? The man finished his call and returned to her side. "I know this might sound strange," he said, "but would you like to join me for a cup of coffee? There's a cafe nearby. I could use someone to talk to, and you look like you might need someone too." Emma hesitated. She had no idea who this man was or what he wanted. But for some reason, she felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, this unexpected encounter could lead to something good. "Okay," she said softly, nodding. "I'll go with you." As they walked toward the cafe, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that this strange meeting was just the beginning of something she wasn't prepared for, something that would change her life in ways she never imagined. As they sat down at the small cafe, Emma couldn't help but feel a strange sense of calm wash over her. The man, whom she still didn't know much about, had led her to a quiet corner, away from the bustling crowd. He ordered 2 coffees, black, and gestured for her to sit. His presence was commanding, yet there was an air of gentleness to him that put Emma at ease. The cafe's warm lighting, the soft hum of conversation, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee seemed to contrast sharply with the cold, lonely day she had just endured at the cemetery. As they sat across from each other, Emma nervously stirred her coffee, wondering what to say next. The man, whose name she learned was Alexander, studied her with quiet intensity. "You know, Emma, It's rare to meet someone who can see beyond their own pain, he said, breaking the silence. His voice was steady, thoughtful, as though he'd been carrying this conversation in his mind for a while. Emma raised her eyes, surprised by the depth of his observation. I don't know what you mean, she replied softly, unsure of how much she was willing to share. You're still holding on to something, he continued, his gaze unwavering. And I don't just mean grief. You're holding on to the idea that things won't get better, that you'll always be alone. Emma looked down, unable to meet his eyes. How could he know that? She had barely said anything about herself. But then again, there was something about Alexander's presence that made her feel as though he could see right through her, as if he understood her pain without needing words. She had never met anyone like him. I've always been alone, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. After my mom passed, I didn't know where to go. I don't have any family left, no one to depend on. It's just been me, trying to survive. Alexander nodded slowly, his expression softening. I understand more than you know, he said quietly. You see, I've been in a similar place. When I lost my wife, I thought I would never find my way again. But sometimes, life brings people together in the strangest ways. Emma looked up at him, her curiosity piqued. What do you mean? She asked, her voice thick with emotion. You know, after she passed, I threw myself into work. I thought I could bury my pain, keep busy, and forget. But I couldn't. And one day, I realized that I was just existing, surviving, but never truly living. That's when I started looking. For meaning, for something to make the pain worthwhile. Emma's eyes softened as she listened to him. There was a vulnerability to him that she hadn't expected. So, what did you find? She asked, leaning in slightly, captivated by his words. I found that giving back, helping others, connecting with people, was the key, he replied, his eyes meeting hers. I started a foundation to help those who are struggling, people like you and me. And that's when things started to change. I realized that the more I gave, the more I healed. Emma sat in silence, the weight of his words sinking in. Could she ever heal like that? Could she find a way out of her own pain, just as he had? Alexander's phone buzzed, breaking the moment. He glanced at the screen and sighed, his expression turning serious again. I'm sorry, Emma, he said, standing up. I have to go, but I'd like to help you. There's something about you, your heart, that reminds me of myself. I think you could do great things if given the right opportunities. Emma stood as well, feeling a sudden wave of gratitude and confusion. How can you help me? She asked, unsure of what to expect. Alexander paused, then smiled gently. Let's just say I know a way to help people find their way. If you're open to it, I can give you a chance to start fresh. Think of it as a way to change your life, if you want to. Emma's mind raced. A chance to start fresh? Could this man really be offering her a way out of her endless struggle? She had nothing to lose, but was it really that simple? She took a deep breath. I'm listening, she said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of thoughts in her head. As they walked out of the cafe, Emma's mind was racing. Alexander's words echoed in her head, a chance to start fresh. It felt surreal, like a dream she didn't deserve but desperately wanted to believe. They walked down the street in silence, the cool air biting at her skin, but Emma hardly noticed. For the first time in a long while, she felt a glimmer of hope. Alexander's offer seemed too good to be true, yet everything about him suggested sincerity. They reached his car, and he opened the door for her. I know this might feel sudden, he said, looking at her with understanding. But I believe in your potential, Emma. Sometimes all we need is someone to give us a chance. Emma hesitated for a moment, glancing at the sleek car before her. She had never been in a car like this before, let alone been driven by a millionaire. The life she had known felt worlds away from this moment. I don't know what to say, she whispered, unsure how to process everything that had just happened. You don't have to say anything, Alexander replied, his tone reassuring. You just have to decide if you want to take that first step. He started the car, the engine humming smoothly as they drove through the busy streets of the city. The flashing lights and tall buildings felt overwhelming, but Emma found herself oddly comforted by Alexander's presence beside her. The drive seemed shorter than it was, and before long, they pulled up to a large building with sleek glass doors and a polished exterior. Welcome to the foundation, Alexander said, as he parked the car. This is where we help people, like you, find a way to turn their lives around. Emma blinked, taking in the grandeur of the place. She had never seen anything like it. The building was modern, impressive, and everything about it screamed success. "This is where you work?" she asked, almost in disbelief. Alexander nodded. "It's one of the projects I've been involved with. We provide support for people who need it most: financial aid, mentorship, job training. We give them the resources to rebuild their lives." Emma felt a surge of emotions: hope, excitement, and a little fear. Could this really be her chance? "Come on," Alexander said, sensing her hesitation. "I want to show you something." He led her inside the building, past the reception desk, and down a long corridor. The walls were lined with photos of people who had turned their lives around thanks to the foundation. Each picture told a story of struggle, resilience, and eventual triumph. Emma couldn't help but feel inspired. "These people," Alexander said, "were once in your shoes. And now, they've found a way to build a better future. You could be one of them, Emma." They reached a door at the end of the hallway. Alexander knocked before entering. Inside, a spacious office overlooked the city, and a woman sitting at the desk looked up. As they entered, "This is Clara," Alexander said, introducing her. Clara smiled warmly, standing up to shake Emma's hand. "We're so glad you're here, Emma," Clara said. "We've been waiting for someone like you." Emma's heart raced. She had no idea what they were talking about, but the way they spoke made her feel like she was already part of something important. Alexander turned to Emma. "Clara here runs our mentorship program. She'll be guiding you through the next steps." Emma couldn't believe her ears. Mentorship? Could she really do this? Alexander saw the uncertainty in her eyes. "Take your time, Emma," he said gently. "You don't have to decide everything right now. But I promise you, if you give yourself the chance, you'll find a way to make it." Emma nodded, still overwhelmed. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she felt like she might actually have a chance at something better. As she looked around the room, she knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in her life. A chapter that might finally lead her to the peace and success she had always dreamed of. As the days passed, Emma found herself adjusting to the new life that Alexander had introduced her to. The mentorship program was unlike anything she had ever imagined. Clara, who was in charge of the program, was patient and understanding, guiding Emma through each step with care and wisdom. At first, Emma struggled with her doubts. She wasn't used to being in a professional environment like this, surrounded by successful, confident people who seemed to know exactly what they were doing. But Clara always reassured her, saying that everyone started somewhere, and that it was okay to feel unsure at first. Emma began to feel the weight of her past life slowly lift. She started learning new skills: business etiquette, managing finances, and even public speaking. It was hard work, but Emma could feel herself changing, growing more confident with each passing day. The foundation became her new family, a place where people genuinely cared about her success. Alexander checked in on her regularly, offering encouragement and support. One evening, after a particularly challenging day at work, Emma found herself sitting in the small cafe again, her favorite quiet spot. She had just finished a meeting with Clara, and her mind was spinning with everything she had learned. As she stirred her coffee, deep in thought, she heard a familiar voice. "Mind if I join you?" Emma looked up to see Alexander standing there, his usual calm presence filling the space. She smiled, motioning for him to sit. "Of course," she said. As he sat down, she couldn't help but notice how much more comfortable she had become around him. It wasn't just his wealth that had impressed her anymore. It was his sincerity, his genuine belief in her. They had come a long way since that first meeting at the graveyard, and Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude. "How's everything going?" Alexander asked, looking at her with a warm smile. Emma sighed, a small laugh escaping her lips. "It's a lot, but I'm doing okay. I'm learning a lot more than I ever thought I would. I still don't know if I'm good enough to really make a difference, but I'm trying." Alexander nodded thoughtfully, his expression serious. "I think you're more than good enough. You've come so far already. But remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about taking each step, even when it feels like you're not ready." Emma nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. She hadn't realized how much she needed someone to believe in her until now. She had spent so long doubting herself, afraid that she would never be able to change, never be able to have the life she dreamed of. But Alexander's faith in her had sparked something inside her, a belief that maybe, just maybe, she could do this. She looked down at her coffee, lost in thought. Do you really think I can do this? She asked quietly, her voice trembling slightly. Alexander reached across the table, placing his hand over hers in a gesture of reassurance. I don't just think it, Emma. I know it. His words hit her like a wave, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of peace. Maybe she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. As they sat there, talking about the future and the possibilities that lay ahead, Emma couldn't help but feel like this was just the beginning. A new chapter was unfolding before her, one where she had the chance to take control of her life, to build the future she had always dreamed of. And, with Alexander by her side, she knew she wasn't alone anymore. The foundation, the skills she was learning, and the people who believed in her had given her a new perspective on life. She was finally ready to take the next step, and whatever that step was, she was determined to make the most of it. Weeks passed, and Emma's life began to shift in ways she never thought possible. The mentorship program at the foundation had become her anchor, and every day brought new challenges and lessons. She was still far from the confident woman she had once hoped to be, but with every small success, she felt more grounded in her new reality. Her confidence, once shattered, was now slowly being rebuilt. Clara, her mentor, had been invaluable in helping her find her footing. Under Clara's guidance, Emma had learned to manage a project, pitch ideas, and even lead a small team of volunteers. It was overwhelming at times, but she pushed through, fueled by the belief that she could make a difference. Alexander continued to check in on her progress, always offering encouragement and a steady hand when things got tough. But as much as Emma appreciated his support, she couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that had started to grow inside her. She had begun to care for him in a way she hadn't expected. It wasn't just gratitude or admiration. It was something deeper, more personal. She had always kept her emotions tightly guarded, afraid of being hurt again. But now, with Alexander, she found herself questioning everything she thought she knew about relationships and trust. One evening, as Emma was preparing for an upcoming charity event that the foundation was hosting, she found herself standing alone in the quiet hall, reflecting on how far she had come. The room was empty, save for the soft sound of her heels tapping against the floor. She had come to the venue early to make sure everything was in place, and now she had a rare moment of stillness. Just as she was lost in thought, the door to the hall creaked open, and she turned to see Alexander standing in the doorway, his usual calm demeanor softening as he looked at her. "You're early," he said with a smile. "I like to make sure everything is perfect," Emma replied, her heart fluttering at the sight of him. As he walked toward her, there was a slight hesitation in his step, as if he too had something weighing on his mind. When he reached her, he stopped and stood in front of her, his expression serious. "Emma, I've been meaning to talk to you about something," he said, his voice low. Emma felt a nervous flutter in her chest. She had learned to read his emotions, and now she could sense that this conversation was going to be different. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Alexander paused, taking a deep breath before speaking again. "I know we've both been focused on our work here at the foundation, and I know I've been busy. But the truth is, I've been thinking a lot about you, about us. I've realized that I care about you more than I ever intended to." His words hit her like a wave, and for a moment, she was too stunned to respond. Was this really happening? Was he really confessing his feelings for her? She had never expected this kind of revelation, especially not from him. I care about you too, Alexander," she managed to say, her voice trembling slightly. It felt like the weight of 1,000 unspoken words had finally been lifted. Alexander's eyes softened, and he reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "I don't want to complicate things, Emma. I just wanted you to know how I feel. If this isn't what you want, I'll respect that. But I couldn't keep pretending that I don't feel something deeper." Emma felt her heart swell with emotion, her mind racing as she tried to process everything. This wasn't just about work or the foundation anymore. This was about them. About the connection they had forged over the past few months, the trust they had built. She took a deep breath and looked up at him, her voice steady now. "I don't know what the future holds," she said, her words soft but firm. "But I do know that I want to take this journey with you. Whatever it is, whatever it becomes, I'm ready." Alexander smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached his eyes. He pulled her into a gentle embrace, and for the first time in a long while, Emma felt like she had found her place in the world. This was just the beginning of something. New. Something she never expected, but something that felt right. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Emma knew that her life was about to change again. But this time, she was ready for whatever came next. The days that followed were filled with a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. Emma had made the decision to take the next step with Alexander, and although it felt like a leap of faith, something deep inside her told her it was the right choice. She threw herself into her work at the foundation, diving deeper into her projects and pushing herself harder than ever before. But at the same time, her growing feelings for Alexander started to become a constant presence in her thoughts. It was a complicated feeling. There were moments when she felt so certain that they were meant to be, and other times when doubt crept in. The past few months had been a whirlwind of change for her, and she was still adjusting to this new version of herself. On a Friday afternoon, after a long week of meetings, Emma found herself sitting in Alexander's office, staring at a pile of reports she needed to go over. She had grown used to the high-pressure environment of the foundation, but today, something felt different. Alexander had been quieter than usual, and she could sense that something was on his mind. He was sitting across from her, his eyes focused on a document in front of him, but there was a distance in his gaze that she hadn't seen before. "Is everything okay?" Emma asked, unable to ignore the tension in the room. Alexander looked up, startled for a moment, then gave her a small smile. "Yeah, everything's fine," he said, but his voice lacked its usual warmth. Emma studied him for a moment, sensing that he wasn't being entirely truthful. "You don't seem fine," she said softly. "What's going on?" Alexander sighed and leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. "I've just been thinking a lot lately," he admitted. "About everything. About the foundation, about us. I've always been the one in control, but now, I'm not so sure." Emma felt a pang of worry in her chest. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think I've been so focused on building this foundation and helping others that I've neglected the people who matter most to me. I've been so consumed with work that I haven't been paying attention to what's right in front of me." "To you." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had never seen him so vulnerable, so unsure of himself. She had always known him as a man with clear goals and a strong sense of direction. The man sitting in front of her now was different, more human. "I don't want to mess this up," he continued, his voice soft but steady. "I care about you, Emma, more than I've ever cared about anything. But I don't know if I'm ready for everything that comes with it." The words hung in the air between them, and Emma found herself at a loss for what to say. This was the moment she had been afraid of, the moment when the life she was building collided with her emotions. "I don't know if I'm ready either," Emma said, her voice trembling. "But I'm willing to try. I don't want to run away from this. I just want to know that we're doing this together." Alexander's eyes softened, and for the first time, she saw a hint of relief in his expression. He stood up and walked over to her, gently taking her hand in his. "I'm scared too," he admitted. "But I know we're stronger together. We just have to take things one step at a time." Emma nodded, squeezing his hand. It wasn't going to be easy, but she believed in them. She believed in the life they were creating, in the future they could build together. As Alexander smiled down at her, she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. This was the start of a new chapter, not just in her life, but in their shared journey. And for the first time, Emma felt certain about the road ahead. She didn't know exactly what the future held, but with Alexander by her side, she was ready to take the next step. As the weeks turned into months, Emma and Alexander's relationship deepened, and with it, the challenges of balancing their personal lives with the demanding work at the foundation. They had learned to navigate the complexities of their feelings for one another, growing closer with every passing day. However, as their connection grew stronger, so did the pressures of their respective roles. Emma's work at the foundation and Alexander's responsibilities as the founder and CEO. The foundation had expanded rapidly, and with that came new responsibilities, new projects, and new faces to manage. It was exhilarating, but it was also exhausting. Emma, once the quiet and uncertain young woman who had walked into this world not knowing where she belonged, had become a pillar of strength within the organization. She had worked her way up quickly, taking on leadership roles and proving herself time and time again. But with all of her success, the weight of her responsibilities began to take its toll. One evening, after a particularly demanding day, Emma found herself sitting in her apartment, staring out the window at the bustling city below. She felt a growing sense of unease, a nagging feeling that she couldn't quite shake. She had worked so hard to prove herself, to build a life that was completely different from the one she had left behind. Yet, as she sat there in the quiet of her apartment, she realized how much she had sacrificed. She hadn't seen her family in months, her friendships had faded into the background, and even her relationship with Alexander had started to feel strained. He had noticed it too. They had barely spoken that day, their usual conversations replaced by silence. When Alexander came home that evening, he found her sitting in the same spot, her eyes distant. He walked over to her, his steps soft on the hardwood floor. "Emma," he asked, his voice gentle. "What's going on? You've been quiet all day." Emma looked up at him, her heart heavy. She hadn't meant to pull away from him, but the weight of everything was beginning to overwhelm her. "I don't know," she said quietly, shaking her head. "I just feel lost. Like everything I've been working for is slipping away. I'm so focused on doing well here, on proving myself, that I've forgotten what really matters." Alexander sat beside her, taking her hand in his. "I've noticed it too," he said, his voice tender. "We've both been working so hard, and I can see how much it's taking out of you. But you don't have to do this alone, Emma. I'm here. We're in this together." Emma turned to him, her eyes filled with gratitude and frustration. "I know, but it's hard. I feel like I'm losing myself in all of this, and I don't know how to get back to who I was before." Alexander looked at her with understanding. "Maybe it's not about going back to who you were," he said softly. "Maybe it's about finding a new way forward, together." The weight of his words settled over her, and for the first time in a long while, Emma allowed herself to relax. She leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the tension in her body begin to fade. "You're right," she whispered. "I've been so focused on proving I can do this that I've forgotten that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to lean on you." Alexander wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. "You don't have to be perfect, Emma. You're already enough." The words felt like a balm to her weary soul. In that moment, Emma realized that she didn't have to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders alone. She had Alexander, the foundation, and most importantly, herself. She had come so far already, and now, with a renewed sense of purpose, she knew that she could continue to build the future she wanted, one step at a time. As they sat there together, Emma knew that this was just another obstacle they would face, but it was one they would face together. And that made all the difference. As the days passed, Emma and Alexander grew closer, and the foundation flourished under their leadership. Emma found herself becoming more comfortable in her new role, balancing her work with her growing relationship with Alexander. Yet, despite their progress, Emma felt a lingering unease, a sense of uncertainty that she couldn't shake. It had been months since she had first joined the foundation, and while she had made tremendous strides, there was a part of her that still wondered if she was truly ready for the responsibilities she had taken on. One evening, after a particularly long day at the office, Emma stood in front of the large windows in her apartment, staring out at the city lights. She couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. From the lonely, uncertain young woman she had been when she first met Alexander, to the confident leader she had become, everything had changed. But there was still a fear in her heart, a fear of losing herself in the whirlwind of success and responsibilities. Alexander had noticed the change in her. He had seen the way her smile had begun to fade, the way she had withdrawn into herself during their conversations. He knew something was bothering her, but he didn't want to push her. He respected her space, but it hurt to see her struggle. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, he gently took her hand. "Emma, I've been thinking," he said softly. "I know things have been intense, and I can see that you're feeling overwhelmed. I just want you to know that you don't have to carry everything alone. You have me. You always will." Emma looked at him, her heart heavy with emotion. She had always been the one to carry the burden, to push through even when it seemed impossible. But now, with Alexander by her side, she realized that she didn't have to do it all herself. "I know," she whispered, squeezing his hand. "But sometimes I feel like I'm losing myself in all of this. I'm afraid that I'll forget who I really am." Alexander tilted her chin gently, making her meet his gaze. "Emma, you're not alone in this. You don't have to do everything perfectly. The person you are, the one who cares deeply, who wants to make a difference, that's who you are. You're enough, just as you are." The weight of his words settled in her heart, and for the first time in a long while, Emma felt a sense of peace. She had been so focused on proving herself, on building a life that was nothing like the one she had left behind, that she had forgotten to honor the person she had always been. "I've been so afraid of failing," Emma admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "But I think I've forgotten what really matters. I've been chasing success and approval, and I forgot that what truly matters is the love and support we give each other." Alexander smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Exactly," he said softly. "We build each other up. And together, we can face anything." Emma felt a warmth spread through her, and for the first time, she let go of the fear that had been holding her back. She didn't need to be perfect. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone. She had found something far more valuable: love, support, and the courage to be herself. In the months that followed, Emma embraced the changes in her life with renewed confidence. She found a balance between her work and personal life, learning to ask for help when she needed it, and cherishing the moments she spent with Alexander. Together, they continued to grow the foundation, helping more people than they ever thought possible. Emma had finally found peace within herself, and with Alexander by her side, she knew that she was ready for whatever the future held. As they stood side by side at a charity event one evening, watching the guests interact, Emma felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was where she was meant to be, not just in her career, but in her heart. She had come full circle, from a woman who felt lost and alone to someone who had found her purpose, her place, and her love. And for the first time, Emma knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she would always have a foundation of love and support to carry her through. The months flew by, and Emma's life continued to evolve in ways she had never imagined. She had found a balance between her work at the foundation and her personal life, learning to cherish the moments that mattered most. With Alexander by her side, she had not only built a successful career, but also a loving relationship that was her foundation in every sense of the word. They had learned that success was not just about achieving professional milestones, but about building meaningful connections and supporting each other through the ups and downs. The charity event they had been working on for months was just around the corner, and Emma couldn't help but feel a surge of pride as she looked at the results of their hard work. The foundation had expanded to help more people than ever before, and Emma had played a key role in its success. It wasn't just about the numbers or the impact they were making. It was about the lives they had touched and the hope they had given to those who needed it most. As the event approached, Alexander and Emma had their final meeting in the quiet of his office, preparing for the last details. The room was filled with anticipation, but there was a sense of calm between them, a shared understanding that no matter how things turned out, they had already achieved something incredible. "I think we're ready," Emma said, her voice full of confidence. "This is going to be a turning point for the foundation." Alexander smiled, his eyes filled with pride as he looked at her. "You've done more than just help build this foundation, Emma. You've helped me find purpose again. You've helped me rediscover what truly matters." Emma's heart swelled with emotion, her eyes meeting his. "We've done this together," she said softly. "This is just the beginning." The night of the event arrived, and the venue was buzzing with excitement. Guests in elegant attire mingled in the grand hall, while Emma and Alexander stood together, watching the scene unfold. It was surreal for Emma to be standing there, knowing how far she had come. She had once stood at a crossroads, uncertain about her future, but now, surrounded by the love and support of the people she had come to call family, she felt like she had finally found her place. As the evening progressed, the room was filled with laughter, heartfelt conversations, and a sense of togetherness that Emma had never experienced before. She realized that this was exactly what she had been searching for: connection, purpose, and a life that was richer than anything she could have imagined. As the night drew to a close, Alexander took her hand, leading her to the center of the room. The guests had gathered around, and Emma could feel the energy in the air as they waited for the next moment. Alexander turned to her, his gaze tender and sincere. "Emma," he began, his voice steady, "I'm so proud of everything we've accomplished together. And I want you to know that this journey, this life we're building, it's not just about success. It's about love. It's about finding joy in the little things and facing the challenges together." He took a deep breath, his hand gently holding hers. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Emma's heart skipped a beat as she looked into his eyes, The man who had stood by her side through it all. The man who had believed in her, even when she couldn't believe in herself. Tears filled her eyes as she smiled, the answer coming from her heart. Yes, she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. Yes, I'll marry you. The crowd erupted in applause, but all Emma could hear was the beating of her own heart, the sound of a new chapter beginning. This was the life she had dreamed of, one filled with love, support, and a future that they would build together. As Alexander pulled her close, she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them side by side. And in that moment, surrounded by the people they had helped, the life they had created, Emma felt complete. This was just the beginning of their story, and together, they would make it a beautiful one. In this heartwarming story, Emma, a young woman facing the challenges of life and loss, embarks on a transformative journey that leads her to a millionaire who unexpectedly changes her life. From working at a foundation to overcoming her own doubts and insecurities, Emma's journey is a testament to resilience and the power of human connection. As she builds a successful career and develops a deep bond with Alexander, a millionaire who has his own emotional struggles, their lives intertwine in ways neither expected. Their story unfolds against the backdrop of a charity event, where Emma's growth and the impact of their work come to fruition. As they navigate their evolving relationship, Emma realizes that success is not just about achievements, but about love, support, and building a meaningful future together. This tale of millionaire stories will resonate with anyone who believes in second chances, personal growth, and the importance of trusting in others. As their story culminates in a proposal, Emma's transformation from a lonely, uncertain young woman to a confident and loved individual mirrors the heartwarming essence of millionaire stories. This is a tale of how love, support, and personal growth can create a life that exceeds expectations. Follow Emma's journey in this unforgettable narrative that explores the power of change, self-discovery, and love, key themes that define the best millionaire stories. Emma's journey proves that even the most challenging beginnings can lead to a beautiful, fulfilling life, making this a must-watch for fans of transformative millionaire stories.